We were just hoping and praying that we'd be able to start a family with one. We didn't say we wanted 6.
The human uterus was meant to have one baby. When you start talking about litters, the risks go up.
I mean, I would have never guessed that we would have to do in vitro because of the money. I didn't want to go into the poorhouse trying to have kids. Oops. Yeah.
You're worth every penny, though.
After years of trying, Carrie and Jeff Mastera finally had a baby or two. They used in vitro fertilization, or IVF, to conceive their twins, Max and Wes.
Religion didn't play a large aspect in their birth. It was a miracle of science.
Although couples like the Masteras seek these treatments to conceive one child, perverse economic incentives often drive them to accept the greater risk of twins, triplets, and even more.
We live in a very consumer-oriented society, and unfortunately having a pregnancy isn't like buying a car. There are a lot more significant risks than you would think that there are.
A cottage industry of TV programs showcase bigger and better families.
We decided to try just one more.
And ended up with 6.
But these shows fail to highlight the potentially bad outcomes of multiple pregnancies. Today, babies can survive being born at less than 1 pound. Yet they spend months in costly intensive care and can suffer from long-term disabilities. Despite these risks, eager couples crave children at any cost.
I think people are so desperate at that time in their life. They really want to reproduce. They want children, and they are willing to take the risk.
In suburban Denver, having a baby became an obsession for middle-class couple Carrie and Jeff Mastera. After years of failed attempts, they started a blog. Our stork got lost. But the Masteras were soon distracted by other worries. Their insurance didn't cover fertility treatments, so they had to pay for everything themselves.
You know, you're an emotional basket case because you're on all these hormones. We'd be constantly worried about money, you know, like constantly. Like, are we going to be able to pay our phone bill this month or our mortgage?
High costs often steer infertile couples towards inexpensive procedures that carry higher risks for mother and child and increase their chances of multiples. Thomas and Amanda Stansel of suburban Houston couldn't afford IVF, which allows more control over the numbers of potential babies.
The cost was way too expensive. My insurance didn't cover that.
Their insurance did pay for 6 rounds of a less costly procedure, intrauterine insemination, or IUI.
We said, well, let's just keep using all of our chances and see if we can get a successful pregnancy with it.
But the Stansels had other health issues. Mrs. Stansel is a type 1 diabetic with endometriosis and a blocked fallopian tube. Even with fertility treatments, a pregnancy would be risky.
You go to the doctor and they're like, well, you've got this, this, and this that's causing you to be infertile or have fertility issues. I'm like, great. And the first thing I thought in my mind is, we'll never be able to have kids.
But the procedure is highly unpredictable. With IUI, the sperm is injected directly into a woman's uterus, often after a woman takes fertility drugs to increase her chances of getting pregnant. Mrs. Stansel's doctor prescribed Gonal F, a powerful fertility drug. It produced dizzying results.
First time we produced twins, we lost them at 18 weeks. And then we had an ectopic pregnancy.
Ectopic.
The stress of losing 2 pregnancies within a year was overwhelming.
You think, oh, great, we're on the road to success here, we're having a kid. Perfect. So that was really hard. It's hard to go through each day knowing that your babies aren't growing in you anymore. And just knowing you have to go through that whole process again of infertility treatments. It's like, oh gosh. And then going through it again and having ectopic pregnancy, it makes you numb, thinking, great, another problem.
On the 3rd try, the Stansels got more than they bargained for. Mrs. Stansel became pregnant with sextuplets, 6 babies, crowded into a uterus designed for 1.
And then finding out 6, it's definitely overwhelming. But we're excited that so far all has gone well and hope we'll have our family.
Doctors say this overwhelming desire for children can lead couples to take a chance on multiples. and the emotional and financial roller coaster of fertility treatments can complicate decision-making.
You can become sort of numbed by the whole process. Some of these are women who feel that this is their last chance to have a baby, or they may have made a big financial investment and don't necessarily have additional resources to draw on should they want to have another pregnancy. So people have a lot of competing pressures.
The Masteras' attempts to have a family were quickly draining their finances. In 1 year, they spent almost a quarter of their income on medical bills.
Like, we both really, really wanted kids, but we got to the point where we were like, we did everything we could have, and we were out of money.
Emotionally drained, but willing to take one last chance, the Masteras went to Conceptions, a fertility clinic outside Denver. They decided to try IVF.
I mean, it's just something that was really important to him to try it. So I said, all right, well, we got one shot. So we're either doing adoption or we're doing in vitro. And when it's done, it's done.
In IVF, eggs are fertilized in a lab, and the resulting embryos are implanted in the womb.
They told us our embryo quality was like crazy good, textbook, awesome quality.
At that stage, the Masteras were given a choice: 1 or 2 embryos. In the U.S., couples like the Masteras have more autonomy on that decision. Unlike in Western Europe, there is no limit to how many embryos a patient can transfer, which can increase the odds of twins, triplets, or even more. The Masteras went back and forth.
I did know that with having more than one baby that your chances for complications increase. I mean, you have to be dumb not to know that. We really did talk at length about what we were going to do, because that's a big-ass decision,
Sometimes that choice comes down to money. IVF can cost upwards of $25,000 a cycle, including drugs and testing. Their new health insurance covered a small part, but the Masteras drained their savings accounts and maxed out credit cards to pay for the rest.
We might have only just done one, but it was we weren't going to do it again. We didn't want to do it again.
To increase their odds of having a baby, they decided to implant 2 embryos. And a few weeks later,
we're pregnant with twins. Yay!
Like the Stansels, they were excited about their growing family, but the costs and risks of carrying multiple babies to term would be enormous for both families. First, there are the risks for the babies. They are frequently born premature, and they are more likely to be born small. Doctors feel expectant parents, desperate to have children, don't fully grasp the implications.
You don't have a picture in your mind of what raising a child with cerebral palsy is like. These children have higher risks of developmental problems, lung problems, cerebral palsy, seizure disorders, and many other complications of being preterm or of low birth weight.
There are also risks to mothers like Carrie Mastera and Amanda Stansel. Over the course of their pregnancies, they would need more doctor visits, more ultrasounds, more everything, because multiples can cause dangerous conditions.
The woman with sextuplets will have a significant risk of pregnancy-induced hypertension, premature rupture of the membranes, a risk of major bleeding that requires removal of the uterus, and in some circumstances can be life-threatening.
Knowing these risks, why would anyone gamble with bad outcomes? Doctors say it's a powerful combination of emotional factors.
We are brutally honest in our antenatal consults about what they're really likely to face. It's amazing how many families will say, oh, if there's a 1% chance that I could have a baby that I can take home and love, that's fine. I want that chance.
Amanda Stansel, a type 1 diabetic who is expecting 6 babies, was advised to reduce to a more manageable number. The Stansels, devout Mormons, were torn.
Obviously, we had the chance to reduce. They strongly encouraged it. We prayed many nights, a lot of sleepless nights. It was a decision we originally thought we might do, reduction. But it just never felt right. And so we chose to carry all 6 and let what God do what He's going to do.
To keep the babies in the womb for as long as possible, in her final months of pregnancy, Amanda Stansel was put on bed rest and pumped full of anti-labor drugs. Carrie Mastera, pregnant with twins, was asked to stay off her feet for several weeks. And still, Maxwell and Weston Mastera were born 9 weeks early. Both weighed 3 pounds. When Mrs. Mastera first saw her babies in the neonatal intensive care unit, they did not look like she had imagined.
They kind of looked like aliens. They looked really frail, and I mean, they had just tubes and wires and needles everywhere. When you see that, you just think unhealthy.
At one point, the babies were so tiny that Mr. Mastera could fit his wedding ring around their entire foot. Max Mastera stayed in the hospital 43 days. Wes came home in 51. Their care wasn't cheap. Medical bills for the boys exceeded $1.2 million.
We have families that, have babies in here for, 3 or 4 or 5 months, and they've reached the lifetime limit of their medical coverage.
Ironically, while the costs of Mrs. Mastera's expensive fertility treatments were barely covered, the $1 million hospital bill was picked up by her insurance, United Healthcare. The CDC is exploring the option of having insurance companies cover expensive treatments like IVF. If these were covered, they say, couples would have less incentive to implant more embryos and could avoid costly hospital stays.
I don't know if I'll ever forget how horrible I felt by them coming early. And I don't know if I'll ever forget about how long we struggled.
Now home, the babies are thriving and developing their own personalities. Max, the smaller twin, is quiet and thoughtful. Wes, the younger twin, is fussy and demanding.
Weston Skinner.
Though the twins are 8 months old, their development is closer to that of a baby 2 months younger.
Look at Wes, hon.
It will take some time before the Masteras know the lasting effects that prematurity will have on their twins.
I worry that I'm going to feel like pressure to push them to meet the milestones that they should be meeting.
Show how advanced you are?
But then I think about it and it's like, I shouldn't care about that, Like they're healthy and happy and doing awesome.
The Stansels were not as lucky.
Who are fighting for their lives.
A joyous week takes a devastating turn for a local family.
Amanda Stansel went into premature labor at 23 weeks and several days, more than 3 months before her due date.
At 24 weeks, we have no choice. They have to try to save the babies. But at 23 weeks, it's up to us. And so Dr. Krishan asked us, he said, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to have a cesarean and try to save the babies, or just do vaginally and let them go? And of course, it was a no-brainer for us. We'll try to save them.
At least give them that chance. You never know.
Most of the Stansel babies, 4 girls and 2 boys, weighed less than 1 pound at birth.
Well, they're little, of course, but they look like little babies, just little.
Until recently, it wasn't even possible for babies this small to survive outside the womb. But while the care for premature babies has improved, the developmental risks remain.
I think we're all, aware of the number of babies that you might take care of that, won't be productive members of society. Sure, we don't encourage families to, go forward with resuscitating a baby that early. This sort of a circumstance where, the family was asking that everything be done, we did what they asked.
Within the first month, 3 of the Stansel babies died. The remaining 3 will be in the neonatal intensive care unit for several months. The outlook is grim.
I don't think I really realized how tough it would be. I didn't realize the ups and downs and how much of an emotional roller coaster it is. It's not fun.
It's what's gotten us through our strong beliefs. And
we're blessed with those 3 beautiful little girls, so it makes it all worth it right there.
They're unfortunately, not the first family that's had multiples with bad outcomes. I doubt they're going to be the last.